still coming in. You want to give them a minute or so to hop on?
Of course.
Okay, cool. I'm a little nervous. The first time I tried to log in, it said it was waiting for the host. Did anyone else get that?
Yeah, I was on hold for a little bit.
Okay.
Right. So this is set so because we're recording it, we set it up so that it doesn't, and it automatically records. So we set it up that the host has to be in there before everybody else can get in, so we don't get a whole bunch of recording at the beginning that's useless.
Yeah. Perfect.
Do you know what's really weird though is like I was on the link Mary, when you texted me, like I was in and it was recording. And It didn't say that there was anybody waiting.
I wonder if it was stalled out because I actually had to like get out of the system and then log back in order to get on.
I don't know. What I had to do was I actually had to go into zoom.us, go into it and join the meeting that way under my scheduled meetings. It was weird.
Huh. Well, hopefully everyone else is able to get in. It looks like people are popping in. So I guess we can start so we don't waste your time, Anthony.
Oh, you're good.
So thank you for being our third participant in Coffee with a Capper. It's been fun, and we're learning a ton of information just about how people have gotten to where they got. And I'm super excited about you in particular because you have climbed super fast. So I researched you this morning. So you did 88,000 in 2012 and 3.4 million the next year. So your first official year was 3.4 million, which is amazing. And then within 8 years, you were 51 plus last year million. So So if you're not an inspiration that, you don't have to have been in the business for 50 years to be successful, I don't know what else is. So pretty awesome.
I appreciate it.
Hold on just a second, Mary. I just want to remind people that the chat stream is open. So if you've got questions throughout this, just go ahead and type them in there and I'll be monitoring that. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
Mary.
Absolutely. So I guess the first thing is, and not too much time on this, but like, what did you do before real estate?
Great first question. I was in construction. I was literally swinging a hammer 8 years ago.
Wow. Okay. And what made you decide to switch?
Rochester, our local economy. So I was actually, you may not know, I was a union tin knocker. I was a sheet metal worker.
Okay.
And Rochester's commercial world, commercial construction world was almost obsolete. We had 400 members in our union, and literally there was like 250 laid off at all times. So we would have to like share the time off, go back for a little, share the time off. And it was doom and gloom. I started it out of high school. I got in, I was still 17 that summer. I started as an apprentice and I went through it and I was making decent money. And at that time out of high school, we were busy. There was an abundance of work. And then that all came to an end. And at that time it was, it was detrimental, but it was the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what made you decide real estate?
To be honest with you, I barely squeaked out of high school. I was definitely not a good student. I literally squeaked out like C- average and had to fight for it, only because I wasn't passionate about it, right? And it was one of those things where it's like, all right, what can I do for a living that has no income ceiling? And I didn't really know anybody in real estate, had no family or anything. So I was contemplating selling cars because my mom's the GM for Van Bortle car dealerships.
Okay.
And I was contemplating selling cars, and she wouldn't let me do it. And thank God she didn't let me do it.
Okay. So what did 2012, 2013 look like for you? Like, how did you navigate those years?
So I actually started in the business on a team, probably towards the tail end of 2012. And I was on that team for, say, just about a year or just under a year. So I actually was able to get in front of a lot of transactions, and I did learn a lot. But the team that I was on, I'm glad I wouldn't change the path for anything, but the listing process was me procuring, I would procure listings and have to pass them off. And then I was kind of just playing customer service for that rainmaker that wasn't getting back to my sphere. So I knew I had to get out before my sphere stopped reaching out to me.
Okay. Well, and I think that the toughest thing most people encounter is how to get people to trust you enough to do business with you in those first couple of years. And it sounds like you didn't really have any trouble. Like, how were you getting business? I mean,
you know, 100% hard work. So I started in the business at Remax Plus on Monroe Avenue. I was living in the village of Hilton, and I was the first one in the building every day. Like I started the coffee pots and turned the lights on, and I was the last one to leave. And I just loved the energy of being around the office and around the phone calls and around the sights and sound of production really helped me a lot. That's why I always encourage newer agents to show up at the office, even if you feel like you have nothing going on.
Right. Well, you show up, but then what are you doing? Like, and again, this was 2012, so probably a little different than maybe how you would do it now, but maybe not. Like, you get to the office, how are you spending your time back then?
I was sitting like a little cubby near the copy machine, which was a busy place, and I did that intentionally. So I would be around the agents, and you know, I was able to ask questions. I knew early on that the database was key. I didn't have I wasn't even like everyone make fun of me. I didn't even have a smartphone at that point in my life. I wanted nothing to do with Facebook. I didn't like the social media thing. And then I realized pretty quickly I had to turn that on. So what I was doing every day was adding contacts to my database. And that's when new agents say, what should I be doing when I've got nothing going on or I'm about to get licensed? I'm always preaching the database because everyone wants to ask about they want to ask high level questions, but they need to be building that database, which is the foundation for them to ever do anything high level.
Okay. And when you talk about the database, are we actively asking like our database for business, or are we just loving them and nurturing them, which seems to be kind of the trend now?
I was proactive about asking them for business. I was making my calls. To be honest with you, I did stuff my first and second year that I'm not as disciplined today around. And certain aspects, when you find some success, you kind of get lazy, and I got to do a better job at that. My coach coaches me on continuing to contact my database. I don't do it enough. And thankfully I was able to build that pretty quick. And, you know, I grew up in the town of Greece. There's a lot of people in the town of Greece. Growing up, I was able to make friends with people, not just from my school, but, you know, there's 4 high schools in the town. So that helped me a lot as well.
Okay. Okay. What would you say were your top 3 lead sources then? Obviously database is one. Anything else that you think that something that people shouldn't be dismissing?
Well, I don't know how effective it would be today, but I literally had the white pages in front of me. And growing up in the town I grew up in, there was plenty of streets that were recognizable, and I would go through the white pages, and I had a laminated script, and I started by contacting 150 people a day, literally off the phone book with, you know, some cheesy scripts, and I'm familiar with your neighborhood. I've got a lot of clients that are interested in being in that direct area. Are you looking to sell, or do you know if any of your neighbors are looking to sell? And I started for a while. I wasn't good over the phone. You had no confidence, right? So that looked like the conversions being around 150 calls to convert somebody and get them pre-qualified. So once I got a little bit better on the phone, the conversions went down to about 1 out of every 100. And then when I got really good, it was probably closer to 1 out of every 50, 75.
Okay. But it sounds like you did a decent amount of business that way, like kind of the old fashioned way, right?
Just some cold calling.
Yeah. I used the source that I was able to afford at that time, which was nothing. So it was the white pages.
What do you think is the modern day equivalent of that?
Modern day equivalent is Facebook. I just feel like agents are willing to throw money at a lot of lead gen, but there's so many nuggets inside of Facebook. Your agents' Facebook pages, their personal pages and their business pages, I just think that I'm going to cut out because my phone's going to ring. I feel like people feel that they have to just share like the success stories. I feel like if I was a brand new agent today, I would almost like talk about the letdowns of every day and what you're struggling with, because I feel like people love following people on social media, and it turns into a group effort for whatever you need. It's almost like a GoFundMe, right? It's like a go support me in my business. And I just think it's human nature to want to help people that are starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunity talking about the struggles than the perception of the success.
Okay, that's interesting.
That is interesting. That's like maybe making yourself vulnerable in a way, right? And just saying,
Yep.
you know, today was a good day or today was a really bad day and I need your help. And because I think everybody looks at agents as, you know, people who make millions and millions of dollars and it's easy and you just stick a sign in the yard. So that's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More vulnerable, the better, for sure.
Absolutely. So back to growing your business. So obviously you grew pretty quickly. How quickly did you decide to start building a team of your own?
Yeah, so it's probably like 1.5 to 2 years on my own. And I realized pretty quickly as I was building this business that my customer service was going down. And remember, this was pre-electronic signature, which electronic signature probably came around, like 5 years ago? And before that, half my day was spent chasing signatures, not just for the initial contract, but going to meet the wife at her job to get a signature for the inspection release, and then the husband at his job. And like the electronic signature allowed us to open up and do more business, but I couldn't keep up, which was a good problem, but I realized that I needed some help. So my buddy's sister was getting licensed, Lindsay Juror, she's actually an agent in our office, and she started tagging along to learn, and I was like, you know what, here's the leverage piece that I need. So she started supporting me with showing houses for my buyers. We kind of worked them together, and then it grew into the business growing more, and I added a second buyer's agent probably within 12 months of adding her.
Okay. So you went a little off the MREA path. You went straight to buyers.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
All right, cool. So we got the building a team. We have a question here. How many people do you have in your database, and how do you decide who to put in? And does anyone ever come out?
So it's interesting. A lot of people assume that I have like thousands of names in my database, right? So I have thousands in my CRM, but those are like, you know, you got your Mets, your half Mets and your not Mets. So of my, base frozen. Hold on.
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
A little bit.
Okay. It should be better now. Every time we get a call, it kind of throws the audio off. But at the end of the year, if I track all of my referrals, they come from like the same 25 to 50 people that are like the Anthony advocates. These are the people that go out of their way to make sure that if they know anybody that's looking to buy real estate or sell real estate, they go out of their way to throw my name out there. Like, I have them armed with business cards, and they will stop somebody in their tracks. They'll stop a stranger in their tracks if they hear them talking about real estate and say, hey, listen, sorry for eavesdropping, but you got to call Anthony. And the majority of it comes from a small pool of people. So the idea of having to have this huge database, it's not true. It's having the right database.
Okay. And how do you keep them loyal? Like, what do you do for those 25 people?
So a lot of touches and a lot of client appreciations. And I don't care how big or small your business is. I think client appreciations are huge, because I talked about it a little bit yesterday on one of the calls, and it doesn't matter how many people show up. The gesture of you inviting them really solidifies your relationship. So I just think it's so important to do it, and do it within your budget. It doesn't have to be anything big and fancy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like Tiffany Hilbert, I talk with her. She does a really good job about getting her sphere wrapped around, and making them a part of your life too is important.
Right. Okay. Is there any way to do that poorly? Like any
Yeah.
mistakes?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing it poorly for a very, very long time, until I had some support, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I wasn't doing it. And I realized it. We're all, if you haven't been there yet, you're going to be there. You're going to see somebody on Facebook with a picture of them closing on a property, and you're going to be like, oh my God, how the hell did I let that slip through the cracks? And that makes you start to think, what do I need to do to make sure that never happens again? Because that's a rotten feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you start building your team when you were at Remax?
Yeah. At Remax, it was me and 2 buyer's agents. It was me and Lindsay, and then Steve Bentavania, who's still on my team today. And then I got an opportunity. To become a partner at which at that time was called WCI Properties. There was only like 4 or 5 people involved, and 90% of their business was new construction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be completely honest with you guys. I was doing very well at Remax, and I had no intentions of leaving at that time because I didn't know what else existed out there, right? I knew of that, and I thought that was the norm. And a friend's family owns WCI Properties, and to be completely honest with you, I left for at that time, a big check. My business was growing. They wanted to grow the brokerage, and they wanted me to run it, and it was feeding my bank account short term, and it was feeding my ego really big, right? I was going to be a owner of a real estate brokerage, and I was going to grow it, and I found success doing it. It was going really, really well. But I was able to foresee a ceiling on what we were able to do. And once it grew to about 40 agents, not on my team, but 40 agents in the brokerage, I realized that there was so many gaps, and the biggest one was education. And I carried that guilt every day because I was so busy in my business. I couldn't give back as much as I needed to the agents that were new or newer to the business.
Well, that's interesting. So how did you end up coming to KW, and when did you come to KW?
So I ended up coming over 2016, October of 16. Yep.
Okay.
And Chuck Hilbert called for a meeting with my business partner at that time. And Chuck and I never met, never talked. And he didn't even ask to meet with me. He asked to meet with my business partner who started that brokerage, whose family has a lot of development. And they've got a lot of stuff going on. They were really big in the assisted and independent living. And Chuck called for a meeting with my business partner at the time, and my business partner invited me to the meeting. And Chuck acknowledged that we were taking a lot of West Side market share. And, so it was smart of him. And he was taking the proactive approach of getting in conversation with us. And after that meeting, Chuck contacted me, and he's like, hey, listen, and there was a third business partner as well. And Chuck kind of said, listen, I don't think I could do anything with those guys. They were pretty egotistical within that meeting. And it was like I'll buy you out, no, I'll buy you out type thing. And I was still very small potatoes. So I just sat back, I listened, and, I talked a little bit when I felt like it was proper. And Chuck contacted me after and said, hey, I'd love to continue conversation with you. I said, yeah, it's fine if you want to continue the conversation. And I'm telling you that not in a million years would I ever leave this, because again, it plays back into my ego was fulfilled. I was the managing broker owner of this brokerage. And over the course of the year, that pest Chuck wouldn't go away. And I asked him to go away. And he wouldn't, and he made me really start to think. And what I realized was I was the smartest person in that room, which is not good for anybody. And I didn't know what was going on outside of my brokerage. I was in the dark. It wasn't like I was connected with a lot of brokers and we were talking about our local industry. So there was a lot of fear started building up. There was a lot of pressure on me. And remember, I was 3.5 years in the business at that time. I didn't know what I needed to know. And we were profitable. We turned things around. And It was going well by a lot of measurables, but I've always kind of been focused on, like, forget today, what are you doing now that's going to affect next year and the year after that and the year after that?
Interesting.
About how
And what
much
a
were you,
great-
about how much were you making at that time? What year was that?
So that was 2000, early 2014, probably. So income wise, personally,
Yes.
are you asking income? Okay.
Or yeah, both
I mean,
volume and
yeah.
income.
At that time, personally, I was probably making a few $100,000. And volume at that time, the last year I was there was 19 million with me and two buyer's agents.
Okay. That's awesome.
Okay. And what a great
Yeah.
lesson that Chuck just didn't accept no, really.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all get told no, that, oh, or never say, you know, I'll drag my body out of here before I move. But, and I'm sure he pressured you kind of, he just stayed in the conversation, right? He wasn't being a bully. He wasn't.
Stayed in conversation and persistently, to the point, like, when I remember seeing his name on my phone and I wouldn't answer. I was kind of getting, like, anxious and annoyed by it. Like, oh God, I got to call him back again because he's not going to stop calling.
That's a fantastic lesson, I tell you what, because we all do that. I mean, we're all like, well, they said no, so I guess it's no, you know?
Yeah, and I think as salespeople, there's something that clicks with us when somebody doesn't go away. You know, we're just thinking, wow, like kudos to you. You're like, they have amnesia to you telling them to go away, and they keep coming and coming and coming, right?
And there's probably some sort of, like, you know, like the, I don't know, phases of grief and stuff. There's probably a phase to it, right? Because you get through that, like, you're interested, then you're annoyed, then you ignore it, and then you finally, like, resolve to just answer the call, right? Because
Then it's acceptance.
I mean,
Yes.
I think this is good. This is good learning right here. Too funny, too funny. Oh my gosh. So then you came over, and did you go straight into the TL role, or?
Yeah. So Chuck, in Chuck fashion, never explained to me what the TL role really was. He's like, you know, here's the deal. You're going to come over, and if you can grow the office to this point, I want to make you my business partner. And I took that serious, and we were successful in growing the office, and a lot of the agents from WCI came over with me. And, you know, I still get messages today from the agents that came over thanking me for making the move. And they're so thankful they followed, because they're such better, you know, they're much better agents today for it.
Okay. Awesome. A couple questions just following back to the database, because you were talking about how you, like, love on 25 people. How do you decide who makes it into that database? Does everyone make it in, and do you just pester them till they go away? Sorry.
Yeah, so I have my database. If I pulled it up in Google Contacts, I have it separated in groups. I have my top 25, my top 50, top 100, and after that, they're more of, not acquaintances, a little bit closer than that, but they're people that I feel genuinely that they would send me the business if they had it. But they're not in that top 25. I get a lot of business from them, but they're not advocates. If they have something, they would probably use me, but they're not going to go out of their way to make sure that I get into a deal.
Right. But do you keep every open house contact, does everybody that comes in contact with you make it to some level of your database?
Great question. So that plays more into my CRM. So let's talk about that real quick. In 2014, I was called by, at that time was a 2-person company called Zirple. And I still use Zirple today, but Zirple was really profound in 2014 because tech's come such a long way in those 6 years. It was a place for my lead gen to automatically forward into. It landed into Zirple, which is a really interactive CRM. And remember, at that time, things were different. The fact that all of these leads were able to go in there, and Zerple's interacting with them based on their activities within the website. It was a landing page CRM. So it would tell me who to reach out to and when. Like this consumer is looking between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. They're the most likely to buy based on their activity. And based on their activity, they're probably going to buy a home in the town of Gates with Gates Schools. They need 3+ bedrooms. It was really profound for its time. And then the company grew. They really caught traction. And I was having one-on-one calls with the owner of the company on a regular basis. And then, of course, it blew up. It was one of those Silicon Valley stories. And he sold it for, I remember reading an article, I think it was like $10 million, probably 3 years ago.
Okay. And you
still use them today.
Okay. You still use them. Interesting.
I have almost, I have over 20,000 contacts in my CRM, which not database, don't know them. But with that being said, I call that like the incubation place where we're doing a lot of deals this year from people that landed into that CRM 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm really big on doing the Facebook ads with Command, because it's not about the quality, it is the quantity, because if you can get them into your CRMs, there's just more opportunity down the road. Again, this isn't going to probably help me today, but it may next year or the year after that or the year after that. So everything's really long game focused.
Right. Okay. And those people, you're not touching them on a personal level, but they're getting drip campaign emails and all that. Okay.
They're getting texts and emails that are pretty personalized based on their activity. If they haven't been using the site in a couple of months, it'll be an email that looks like a personal email coming from me or somebody on my team that sounds a lot like, hey, Mary, I noticed you haven't been active on the site recently. Is there something specific I can help you find? And those will spur a reaction. And now we're in conversation. Yeah. And now we would move them into a warmer category.
Okay. Wow. Do you anticipate that Command is going to be that savvy?
Yeah. To be honest with you, it's pretty close from us being able to shift everything right now. And we're using Command for everything, but I'm still using Zerple. And listen, Command's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's technology. It changes every single day. So I think everyone just has to, I think we have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kim, do you want to address some of the questions?
So just going back to like your clients and the top 25 or whatever, do you do client appreciation events, or do you do anything special for your top 25 or your top 50? And what does that look like, and how often?
So we'll start with the 25 to 50. I'm in close contact with them. So like, to me, doing something special for them is staying in relationship with them. The friendship is the special piece. And it's a gift for both of us, right? So stay close with them. But we do client appreciation parties now, events now, as a team, a minimum of once a quarter. And, you know, as my business has grown, as the team's grown, of course, the budget's grown because there's more people that we're inviting. And I can tell you what the events look like. So last year we did one that was like a cookout, like barbecue, beers at a lodge, and people liked that. And then what we realized pretty quickly is that the more family oriented they were, the better the results. And we learned that by kind of doing an adult themed client appreciation party at Radio Social that was kind of adults only. It was a really low turnout. So then we shifted gears and we said, okay, we have to focus on families. And the last 2 years, I've sponsored the Rock Holiday Village that takes place downtown. And it is not cheap. And yet I see it as an investment and not even an expense. And when I say it's not cheap, we spend over $10,000 on sponsoring that. But it goes on for over the course of a month between Christmas or between December 1st and New Year's.
Okay. Okay.
And that's family oriented. So we did breakfast with Santa. We did gingerbread house kits. And you know, when I say we, I hate, like, I catch myself because I've built my business enough now where it's not me doing it. It's people that are a lot better at doing it than me. And I think that's another key piece too. When I talk about building my team, I did it the wrong way. And we kind of broached that earlier, where I thought buyer's agents were like the cure-all, but administratively I was a mess. And I never felt like, I never felt content. There was always lingering things that had to be done. And it added to the anxiety. So it took me 5 years to hire my first admin, and I think 2 months to hire my second after I saw the effect of the first. Because again, I always looked at it as an expense, and I realized very quickly that human beings are the best investments that you could ever make, especially good ones.
Yes. So, so we were talking about command and Facebook. What content do you find works best with your command to Facebook ads?
I am not going to try to exaggerate and say that I know that. I have a marketing person that works for us. He works 20 hours a week for the team. He's an afternoon personality on the radio, and him and the girls, Christina, Samantha, and now Aaliyah, that just started with us as a transaction coordinator, they're involved in that tech. So I hate saying that I'm all the way out of it because I have to get closer to it. I'm learning another life lesson too, is like, and Gary talked about this in my mastermind a couple weeks ago, that like, you're stupid if like you're okay with all these things being done and you don't have a fundamental understanding of what is being done and how. Like, you have to have some sort of understanding, and I got to improve on that. So gotcha. I can't speak to the Facebook to command other than the results are really good and the budget's really low. So the ROI is massive.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So somebody asked, so with regards to the client events, I have somebody on here that posted that she's a single agent. She's got a handful of sellers. What kind of client appreciation would get the biggest draw? Where, what, and yes, family oriented. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, like, a lot of people do the movies. I'm not crazy about the movies because it's like, you know, it's an hour and a half to 2.5 hours of not interacting. You're watching something, right? So right. I would say anything to interact. I've seen agents, like Lynn did something that I thought was a really cool and creative idea. She rented out an ice skating rink, and that was great for families. Obviously the adults can partake, but if they don't want to, the kids are entertained. They can go out, you know, and eat and drink and make it a family event that doesn't cost them anything. It's on you. So I would suggest doing something along those lines. It doesn't have to be ice skating. It could really be one of many things. Someone just commented bowling night. Like, yeah, that would be great. I wouldn't make it night though, because I learned by that. I would probably do a Saturday or a Sunday to make it out where people can do it with their entire family.
Mm-hmm. So how do you determine whether or not you should be on a team or independent? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, you know, I get asked often by agents that are just getting in the business. Some are bold enough, and I give them credit. It's like, hey, I want to join your team. When can I start? And my kickback is I would suggest to anybody starting on your own before you just jump on a team. That's my opinion. It's not the case for everybody, but I think it's important that you build a foundation of your business. Make yourself attractive to a team rainmaker. Make them notice you. Do something. Be proactive on Facebook. Like I always tell people, and this was all, you know, this was a fact in construction. You keep your head down and let people see the way that you work and look at your commitments. Someone's going to tap your shoulder, and now you're going to be asked to join a team instead of asking to join a team. And if you're asking if you should join one or not, if you feel like you're doing a good job with your business and you have a good discipline within your business, but you would love to do it with more people, then I say, yeah, venture out, venture out and meet, contact Team Rainmakers and ask them if you can talk and if it would be a good fit. I'm always willing to talk to agents, but don't do it because the move shouldn't be there because you can't get the business going on your own. It can't be a crutch, because remember, that same Team Rainmaker that's going to take you on because you couldn't get anything going for yourself is probably asking you to join their team out of self-serving and not because they see something in you and because they see gaps in your business that maybe they can amplify it, right? So I think the dating pool is going to be better for you if you get some experience under your belt alone.
Gotcha. So do you think that the single agent will be able to survive in the future, or do you think things are moving solely to teams?
The solo agent, there will always be the solo agents, and teams are going to get bigger and teams are going to take more market share. I truly anticipate over the next 5 years that we're going to see a big agent count drop. And I say that because, number one, a lot of people are going to be aging out of the business or retiring. And I do see the teams getting bigger. I hate saying this, but I have to be honest in that it's tough to compete with the teams. I was thinking about like having to compete with myself with me going into a listing appointment, having the support of my entire team, my director of operations, my listing coordinator, my transaction manager, Jason, who's that director of sales role. It's just, they have a lot behind them. And for the most part, everybody kind of charging the same rate. I know we can't say that, but 99.9% of transactions are based off of 6% commissions being offered. When you're charging the same for the same service, but you come with a lot of support behind you, I just think it's tough to compete with them. But listen, there's a lot of solo agents that have really big businesses. We have a lot in my office specifically, and I feel like you shouldn't form a team just because of that. Because I'm honestly envious of the agents that want to do 3 million or 4 million or 5 million on their own, and they're good. I think it's kind of it's a catch-22. I'm never satisfied. I always want to keep growing and move the post, but right. A lot of times I wish I was content with less because life would be a lot easier.
Do you anticipate any other major changes in the way real estate is conducted in the future?
Yeah, the future is right now, and think about all the changes in the last month. After this is over and we're back to the new normal, we're going to realize that business is never going to be done the same, and the fear of having to do so many in-person showings with your buyers to try and solidify that relationship. It's something we create in our minds. And again, a lot of old timers or old way of thinkers are saying that it's way too impersonal now. And like, they go nuts when you're not presenting offers in person. Like, I get it. That's the way you feel like it should be done because that's your comfort zone. But I'm telling you that, like, my demographic, my age group, my friends, if we can put an offer in a house virtually and you can send it to me to sign electronically, like, I'm busy. That's the route I want to go.
Right. So Len, you commented 6 Apple. Do you want to unmute yourself? And I'm not sure what that means.
We're just talking about not being able to talk about percentages. And I learned in a class years ago, call it 6 apples instead of 6%.
Oh, gotcha.
Talk about it. Actually, Mike Nosey, I think, in one of his classes used to say that.
Okay.
It still does, I think.
6 Apple. That's cool.
Yep.
Now, we're not allowed to talk
get around
specifics on commission, but do you anticipate that the structure of commissions will change over the future, like how it's being done?
So we're protected with a lot. We're protected by a lot of things because of where we're doing business, right? We're we're not San Diego, we're not Las Vegas, we're not Phoenix. We're going to get such ahead. We're going to know way ahead of time when something is coming our way, because you listen, Rochester's not that sexy market for these tech companies to move into. So there's going to be a lot of vital signs for us to know. And, you know, a lot of times, and I didn't realize it until I was talking to other agents within KW in other states, like I was almost like embarrassed by my average sales price, and talking to these agents that were doing the same volume as me with a quarter of the transactions because their average sales price is so high. The high average sales price, they're under attack all the time for their commissions, where in our market, especially with my average sales price, which today I think is about $126,000, I really don't get beat up on it much. And I think as the industry progresses and tech's more involved in the business, I still don't think that our commissions are at high risk. They're going to be at risk, but a lot of these companies that start in Rochester, they just don't make it like they do in some of these bigger areas. Think of the flat fee brokerages here, and they're not finding much success. They're not winning listings. So I think it's easy to combat them with the right scripts.
Right.
I think it's a slippery slope too, because years ago, I remember when it was getting really competitive and everyone was, you know, vying for listings, and, you know, one agent would say, you know, I can do it for 6%. Then the other agent say, well, I could do it for 5%. And then I could do it for 3%. And it was just, I think the board might have even stepped in years ago too and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then just said, you know, let's put this to a halt. This is not a good precedence to make, you know. So now I tell people.
Yeah, I love it.
I tell people, no, I'm sorry. I work for, you know, I work for a big company. This comes down for the top. They say 6%, you know, I can't budge on it, you know.
Nope. Yeah, don't even go. I don't even go down that path, guys. Listen, if they're asking you for a break, and I get that all the time, we talked to another agent. They're willing to list it for 5%. Are you willing to do that? I said, no, I'm never willing to do that, and you shouldn't be willing to do that either. Well, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is you're about to hire somebody that's taking money out of their own pockets. You think that person's going to fight for you getting top dollar for your house when they don't know how to get top dollar for themselves?
That's a good
point. Good point.
I love what you said, Anthony, about the fact that, like, we're not a hot spot, right? Like, we're going to see the trends. If things are happening, like, it's like fashion, right? Like, Paris knows long before Rochester does what's happening in the fashion world. So I think that's good to keep in mind if you ever start second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. Somebody put a comment in the chat, picked up a new term last evening while watching a training event. They called it data bank, not database. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And like, even more important now, you're going to see people focus even more on their database with the fear of what our market's going to look like as a nation, really. Rochester, we're going to be pretty sheltered. But as a nation, like the stock market specifically, people are going to, what were we just talking about?
Trends.
Oh, data bank. People are going to dive deeper into their database, because that's the one guarantee business during a shift, right?
Right, for sure. What else do people have?
I had a question, Anthony. Do you like try to target and try and find ways for like to increase your funnel, like attorneys, or go after some sort of target that you hope will funnel to your business? Do you think in those terms, or?
So now when you say go after attorneys, like in which way?
Well, in the sense that, you know, like some people might try to get doctors too, because, you know, people like companies that are bringing people into town. Like, have you found that one that you've tried to approach, go after? Is it useful? Do you do that?
I don't chase that. Yet if it presented itself, I would be open to it. I'm not crazy about, like, you know, I've passed on plenty of opportunities where, like, you know, you get into bed with a relocation company, and if it grows your business, it's great, and it's terrible because you start catering your business so much to that you lose focus on your bread and butter, which is your sphere. And I know my cost of sale, and I get referral opportunities here on like a buy side. And by the time I would take a referral, if someone's looking for 25% or 30%, by the time I shave that and I have one of my buyer's agents work that, it just doesn't fit into my model. There's not enough meat on the bone. So I really focus on the full commission market. And I learned a valuable lesson a few years ago when our inventory just started to drop. Everyone's business was going down, like the units were going down across the board. And at that time, I was starting to ignore my investors of the past. And I was ready to fire myself from the builder that we were representing. And thank God I didn't, because that supported my business and the team's business big while the inventory was going down. We got back into conversations with all of these investors, overseas investors. And thank God, Jason Mancuso, he kind of started his business in the investment only world. And that really saved our team. And it opened my eyes that year, because we did so much more investment deals, and our average sales price was like $100,000 that year. But I'm okay with it. I would now, after talking to other agents that have a much higher price point but are doing less units, remember, every unit is another opportunity to build your sphere, right? Although it would be easier to do 200 units at my same production, it's 200 less opportunities to grow your database and your sphere and their sphere if you work your sphere at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's great that you were talking about the investments. I mean, that's in the shift book, right? It's just like during the shift, then you might just have to start looking in other directions for where the business is.
And any business's biggest issue is cash flow. So doing the units has really helped us in never having to worry about cash flow. We're averaging more than a commission check a day, so there's never cash flow issues. It's always there. Although they're much smaller commissions, it's consistent. And I realized that early on. I wasn't scared of the $10,000 deals or the $20,000 deals. I was chasing anything and everything.
Yeah. Well, and Shift says that too, right? It's a survival mode, and then that kind of preps you for being prepped for when it gets a little bit better. You mentioned cost of sales. Do you have a system that you love as far as accounting, or, is it QuickBooks or?
So, I love the system. His name is Jason Mancuso, and Brad Knowles, my coach. Yeah, I don't even know how to do a spreadsheet. I have trouble logging on to them. But I've always known that I wanted to do more business so I can afford to have other people that do it way better than me doing it, because I know my capabilities. I mean, if you saw my KPA, it would probably look a lot like I'm describing right now, where like all my highs are, mega agent, rainmaker, team leader, OP, and my lows are all structured,
not in the details.
Yeah, no one's gonna hire me as an executive assistant. I can promise you. I'm a mess. I am. Believe me, I'm sloppier than any of you on this call. But with that being said, I did what I had to do when I couldn't afford anybody else.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And you have to do it sometimes. It's not fun. It's not a fun part of the business, but I would advise you to push through it, because you will eventually be able to grow your world big enough where even if you don't have a full-time assistant, to be able to afford a virtual assistant, somebody to take your non-money making activities away from you. And up until I started coaching with Brad Knowles, who's still my coach today, and our first call, he acknowledged that 35% of my day was being wasted on minimum wage work. It changed my whole world. It was like, Anthony, what are you doing? You're putting sign writers up. You're putting lock boxes up. You're doing all of these tasks. And it wasn't about me saving money. It was costing me money. And he said, Anthony, what did you make last year? And I gave him the number. He goes, all right, you're worth this much an hour. And it was hundreds of dollars. And he said, do you enjoy spending $290 on going to put up a sign writer or a lockbox? And it was like, man, so simple, but so profound. And it changed the course of my business and encouraged me to hire my assistant, who's been a life changer for me.
Well, that kind of leads into Andrea's question about your system for hiring an admin. I think sometimes it's just scary. You don't know what you need. You don't know who you need.
Yep.
So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I find a lot of people hiring out of desperation, and there's no longevity to it. It doesn't have legs. You're going to have to continue to keep hiring. And it sucks to hire the right way because it's a long process. But I can tell you our most recent hire, that was the full career visioning process. And I'm shocked she didn't take off in the middle of the process, because I'm sitting there like, man, I really want to hire this girl, but we're dragging our feet. But she hung in there, which also said that she was the right hire because she was willing to wait for the job that she wanted and go through that process. My first hire ever, I got very, very lucky. I guess good intuition, because her name's Christina Spalt. She's my director of operations, and she changed my world and continues to. It would take me 5 people to replace her. And I'm constantly thanking her. And I'm proactive about letting her know how thankful that I am. Fear of losing her is one motivation, but I wanted to know that she's loved and appreciated. But she was my first hire, and she was a processor for Nothnagel Securities, a loan processor. And Kathleen actually knew her through another mutual friend, and she reached out to her because she knew she was looking to make a move. I said, can you meet tonight? She says, I guess. And I literally offered her the job via email late that night, and she accepted the next day and started 2 weeks after that.
Wow. So there's a question here, and I know you are doing the mastermind at 10, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. So we got to be mindful of your time.
No, that's okay. If it goes a little bit over, it's not a big deal.
Okay. So what do you think, or who are your biggest influencers?
It's going to sound really dorky. My parents, they're both Sicilian immigrants that came here with nothing. And they worked 2+ jobs my entire childhood. Me and my brothers never saw them. We had an aunt and an uncle that watched us all the time, or we were at our grandparents when they were alive, when they came to this country. And the work ethic above all else. There was no room for complaining in our household. There was I'm not kidding, I had perfect attendance from kindergarten through high school. I never missed a day of school, even if I was sick, because there was no room for it in our house. My parents went to work sick, as bad as that is now, especially with what we're going through, right? There was just no excuses. So they've been my biggest influencers. I could talk about people that I follow, but it's kind of dangerous too, because I started to find myself following people that were convincing me that I was doing the right thing, but I'm not those people, and everybody's a little bit different. So, I love podcasts. I love listening to what other people are doing, but I've just become more self-aware, and I realize what's going to work and what's not going to work for me. It's just not me.
Gotcha. All right.
So yeah, the immigrant work ethic definitely is the biggest influencer in my parents, and they both still work today. My father's been at the Wegmans warehouse on Brooks Avenue for 48 years.
Wow.
There's a great new book out there. Brian Buffini did The Immigrant Edge, because it's all about that, how immigrants, are some of the most successful entrepreneurs in America, coming here with nothing, but because they come here with nothing to lose, they have to survive or die. And there's something to that natural born Americans don't always have,
And that was my first 2 years in the business. I wasn't motivated by opportunity. I was motivated by fear only. And let me tell you, it's no way to live, but it's effective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're coming to a close since you've got your 10 o'clock and the questions are dribbling in. But last thing, like final advice for newbies out there.
Final advice for newbies out there. There has never been a time in real estate where a brand new agent can take market share than there is right now. Don't let anybody tell you to get out of the business or you're not going to make it, even if you're facing struggles right now, because I can tell you, my brothers, my parents, my family, when I told them I was going to do real estate, they told me I was nuts and they were fearful. And I can tell you that if you're passionate about it, you have to do whatever you have to do to stay in it. I was changing furnaces out and doing service calls on the side through Craigslist my first couple of years in a suit. And it wasn't about putting money into savings. I just wanted to earn enough to stay in the game. I just wanted to stay in real estate. And I was willing to do anything I had to do to stay in it. So if you're passionate about it, stay in it. If you don't think you're passionate about it, in that case, I would tell you to get out, because there's a lot of agents that are doing a lot of business that aren't happy. They don't enjoy it. It's just a conduit to a large income and an empty life.
So true. The other thing that kind of resonates with me, I've heard this from a lot of people, is that in a sense, we're all kind of on a level playing field right now, whether or not you've been in the business for a year, a couple of months, 10 years, 5 years, whether you make $30 or, 30 million, we're all kind of starting at the same place right now, like you said, like, it's zero. So you all have the chance to put your best foot forward and be the best you can be.
Yeah.
Head down.
Let me add on real quick. Like, guys, think about what we're doing right now. Kim and Mary, and think about all of our agents that give so much back. They get nothing fiscally in return, but we have so many great people in the company that it was culture shock, guys. If you've been at KW and you weren't anywhere else, you won't ever have, I think, the full appreciation. But the way I thought business was supposed to be done was completely different. I was a completely different person. When I came over here, it was culture shock. And like, I didn't trust why everybody was so effing nice. And it was almost like annoying, like, mind your own fucking business. Don't worry. Like, and then I realized it was like, God, there really is another way of doing business. And I don't have to like print something and sprint to the copy machine so another agent doesn't look through the contract to see if they're writing on the same house. Like, that shit exists. That really happens still. And this changed my world, guys. That, my first year coming over to KW, my business went from 19 million to 36 million. And it was because I came to a company where I had people way bigger than me at that time at KW. They had bigger businesses, and it was great to learn from them. Like, this call I'm about to jump on, it's Team Rainmakers with big teams. We're all working together and we're all talking about this. And I just always thought it was something people talked about existed, but to see it really play out in real life in a real estate brokerage, I get goosebumps when I think about all of the people that we have in this company that give back, and they almost feel obligated to, because so many have given back to them. So when people ask me something, I want to do it, but I also feel like I have to do it because so many have given back to me since I came to this company, and I couldn't be happier.
Awesome. Well,
That is
thank you
awesome.
so much for joining us today. We really,
Anytime.
really appreciate taking your time out of your day and sitting and chatting with us.
And you guys said.
I wanted to remind everybody that we are taking a break from this series next Thursday because it is Red Day. So we want you to go out and, collect donations and give back to the community if you can. And then following that, we have Teresa Didion on the schedule from the Gateway office. So please join us in 2 weeks for our next version of Coffee with a Capper. And thank you again so much, Anthony. I appreciate you being
Thanks,
here.
guys.
And thank you,
Anytime.
Mary, for assisting with this whole process. We're good co-pilots together, so. All righty, and if anybody's got anything else, any other suggestions, ideas, whatever, please reach out to either Mary or myself, and we'll do the best we can to get something on the schedule, okay?
See you guys.
Have a great
All
rest of your day, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.